Hi, my name is Sam, and I'm here to talk about how qualifications can be used as a means for greater organizational performance. I'm going to be talking more or less from the perspective of a learning and development professional, although I think this actually has significant impacts across the entire HR life cycle. And I think, first of all, I want to kind of start with defining what qualifications are. And when we say qualifications, what we mean by that is the behaviors, the knowledge, the skills, and the abilities that are important to an organization to achieve its business outcomes. Many of you have actually probably seen the knowledge, skills, and abilities. We've actually added in behaviors partly because we also decided as an organization it's very important that how we get things done is as important as what we actually get done. Before continuing on, I know that many of you have probably heard of qualifications and have kind of talked about like, well, you know, seen that, heard that, haven't actually seen it in practice. And I'd like actually to agree with you because getting this right is not easy. In fact, actually we've struggled with it. We've actually had at least 3 occasions in which we've tried to implement some sort of a centralized skills framework and it failed. And so what we did is we tried to analyze why we actually failed on these 3 occasions and to flip this around into a set of guiding principles to help us around how we can succeed this time around. Some of the guiding principles that we had was ensuring that we had consistency. So all of the skills, knowledge, abilities, or behaviors are at a consistent level. They're not too high, not too low. And this is actually really important because we actually had to balance comprehensiveness with usability. In the past, because there was different levels of these skills and abilities, the number of skills and abilities also started to grow. And so the system actually started to collapse on itself because of the sheer magnitude of the number of skills and abilities that were out there. We also wanted to make sure that there wasn't actually overlap with existing competencies which we've rolled out. Another key guiding principle that we had was to ensure that there's a critical mass of people who would actually be trying to build these skills and abilities. So if there's actually only 5 out of 5,000 people that would be interested in this type of a qualification, we actually wouldn't want to be tracking it as an organization. The last guiding principle I think is the absolute most important, and this is the fact that we needed business ownership of this. This is not a HR thing. This is not an IT thing. So in the past we've actually seen these systems fail because at one point IT did try to push this. At one point HR did try to push this. We needed the business to take ownership because by taking ownership they would actually ensure the adoption of it and also the ongoing use of it. So when we began this work, we decided to start off with a bit of a problem opportunity statement. And when we considered, like, what is it that we're trying to address here with qualifications, one of the things that we came about is that, you know, there's a number of universal problems that any learning and development professional faces. And this is, number 1, that learning is disconnected with business strategy. Number 2, that there's actually very low impact on the job. So there isn't that learning isn't translating back into operations. And finally, this leads to the third problem, which is the biggest one, is how do we quantify value? So when you actually have a disconnect with the business, when there is very low or no impact on the job, of course there's questions about value. So these were some of the challenges that we saw that I think any learning and development professional faces. And so what we really started off with is what we want in terms of value is how do we drive organizational performance? And we actually looked at why sometimes learning is not adopted and why some of these skills and frameworks or qualifications frameworks aren't adopted. And the first thing that we kind of came to was that in order for this to be applied on the job, we really needed the partnership with managers. We need to engage managers in sustaining and evaluating how learning is happening on the job. Second, we also saw that, you know, for this to be effective, we need integration across all people processes. And third, that we somehow need to align the different skills, competencies, or qualifications, as we're putting it, to strategic objectives. And this is actually where I think we started our thinking around qualifications. So I want to talk about these in turn now. So what did we do to engage managers in sustaining and evaluating the learning? So we did a couple things. So first of all, remember my guiding principle is that we need the business to own this. So we actually started a lot of conversations with managers using their language around, okay, so how do you assess whether somebody is an expert in your job or in that field? So these discussions led to the creation of a straw model of a qualifications framework. One of the really interesting things that we did was try to ensure that there was a good balance between what we called kind of corporate-wide qualifications applicable across multiple divisions and departments, and qualifications that were specific to a division. Part of our discussion was how can we balance some of this, the more specifics of a division and the skills that they have there with a corporate framework. And we definitely wanted more in the corporate framework versus in a division specific, because this is actually very important both for managing the number of qualifications that we had, but number two, enabling more cross-divisional partnership. So I'm going to move on to talking about how qualifications can be integrated across all of the HR processes. And we're really looking at it from a learning and development perspective, but qualifications has a lot to do with performance management. It also has a lot to do with talent management and even recruitment. So first of all, if we talk about performance management, this is actually the time where there is development discussions going on, and we want managers and their staff to be partnering to talk about what things should they be focusing on, what kind of skills or what kinds of knowledge or abilities or behaviors should they be focusing on. When we talk about talent management and recruitment, this is actually where career management comes in, and also where job profiles and candidate info comes in. So from an organizational setting, it also allows for workforce planning, because what we need to look at, as an example, we're going through some massive transformation right now, like a massive change in systems and processes. So what kinds of skills, knowledges, or abilities do we need as an organization to ensure that we have those right skills to enable that change to happen? And finally, coming back into learning and development, when you're actually able to tie this all together, what happens is I can actually get to role-specific learning. So we've structured all of our learning around qualifications so that our outcomes are tied to these qualifications, and the jobs are also being mapped to these qualifications. And finally, alignment to business, and I think this is actually the most important. Alignment to business, I believe, begins with embedding learning into the planning process. So qualifications allows us to have a discussion at the right level, and it also allows us to track human capital over time, or changes in human capital over time. But when you actually have qualifications over time, you're actually able to report on it so that you actually provide information back to the business. You're also able to have the planning conversation, the right kinds of conversations at the beginning to kind of say what actually would be making a difference to you over time. So now what I'd like to show you is a sample of the qualifications framework that we've been talking about, and the work that my team has kind of put together. So if you look at this framework that we have, you'll see that we have unique skills to the department across insurance, claims, driver licensing, finance, HR, IS, strategic marketing. So what we've tried to do is limit the number of kind of unique skills to department, because we want transferability, and we want to, back to our guiding principle, we needed to ensure that there is a usable kind of set that we had. We also then kind of tried to put in as much possible into that corporate, or what we call the common skills across departments. And as an example, analytics as a skill is applicable to multiple divisions. So we know there's analytic area in insurance, claims, driver licensing, finance, even in HR. And so what we've tried to do is to build out this framework, allowing for as much cross-divisional applicability as possible. And with each of these qualifications, we then actually put in a scale, okay? So this is what we call the proficiencies. So the standard scale is just based on kind of your Bloom's taxonomy, kind of moving from kind of knowledge all the way to be able to master it and to be able to actually teach it out. So that's actually a 5. So this scale, 1 to 5, we had the standard scale. But what we did in some of the conversations that we had with the managers was, as we started asking them, so what does somebody, for example, that has an expertise or a skill in product and coverage, how do you evaluate that? What are the different levels? they actually started to kind of customize some of these scales. And so this is actually really important and useful because as we land on these proficiency scales, we have this kind of common understanding of what, in this example, product and coverage looks like, that skill. And you'll see that, for example, at level 5, there's knowledge of specialized policies and coverages as well as all key features and gaps, versus at the very basic level, level 1, the ability to read policy and understand terms of coverage. So these words actually came directly from the business as we did these manager interviews. So this actually enables us to be able to create sustainment of that learning and also partner with the manager in assessing how people are doing on the job. So I hope this actually presents a good high-level overview of how qualifications can be used as a means to drive stronger organizational performance. It is a journey that we've begun and are continuing to take. And I know that for us, we're actually just going through a number of pilots right now. And some of the next steps that we're needing to drive are running a pilot so that everybody within the organization development and HR area have actually tried this, know it, and use it. We're also doing an exercise to try and bring together the qualifications between kind of what we collect at the recruitment end, and also what we're using from a development and performance end. And finally, we're trying to ensure that we have alignment of courses to the right types of qualifications that organizationally we're trying to embed. So thank you very much for your time.